Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Snyder Family Podcast. We're excited for today's episode. We here at the Snyder Family Podcast believe that strong families create strong communities, and strong communities create a strong nation. And we believe that this podcast is just a small piece in investing into you and wherever you are in your stage of life, into your life and family. And we just want to help make the world around us a better place. And so we have some cool merch. Check us out on SnyderFamilyPodcast.com, and we're excited to jump into today's content.
Well, we're back.
We're back!
It's the final countdown.
The final countdown. And scene. But we've been moving through hot takes of the most asked parenting question of each state. And we have reached the final countdown. And we are going to start off today with Utah. And we're going to end with Wyoming.
So then Utah first, Utah second.
He was waiting for that one.
That's good.
I had that one in the hopper.
That's good. So let's start with Utah. The most asked parenting question from Utah is, when can a kid sit in the front seat?
I think it's 13. I'm pretty
Queens.
I think it's 13.
Unless you live on a country road.
Yeah. Tell me where
Then
you're from.
Then you're driving.
Honestly, though, yeah, for real. I do think it maybe does vary a little bit by state. And then also size. Like if you are a very small 13-year-old, I do think that there are like suggestions. Like
Sure.
I think it's based on the impact that the airbag could have on your body.
Sure.
And so looking at that. So
I have nothing to add. My hot take.
that's about it.
My hot take would be that if you're in the city or on a long drive, I would say no less than 13. But I mean, if you're on a slow road and you're just doing a joyride, like I'd say like ride along, partner, ride along.
What?
I don't know.
Hey,
I'm just gonna say this because we can share it. But Grandpa, when we would ride in the Model A, right? It was Model A, not Model T, Model A. And man, that thing was slow, but it was really fun. I just remember rides, and I remember sitting up front sometimes, sitting in the back. It was just fun. So
Yeah.
And then let's be honest, if you're out in the country and you're riding a tractor, there's no back seat.
There ain't no
You're
back
front
seat.
seat the whole time.
There
Anyways.
ain't no back seat. Okay, Vermont. Their most asked question is, why do kids bully? I think we
We talked about it, I
talked
think,
about
a
it
little bit.
yeah.
I think we referenced like the idea of kids who are hurting themselves tend to hurt other people. And so like that's something that as a former teacher, like we would talk with students about the idea that everyone has a bucket and some people's buckets are empty and they come in empty. And so our job is to try and fill it rather than continuing to empty other people's buckets. But
I think that was episode
Yeah.
2 of this series.
Yeah.
If you want to check it out.
part 2.
But yeah, I think that idea of like hurting people hurt people.
Okay, Virginia.
Virginia.
Virginia asks, how to deal with a child that cries over everything? Hot take?
Hot take.
Hot take.
You gotta toughen them up. That's my thing. I mean, here's the thing: if you have some medical things going on and there's some mental medical stuff going on, then that obviously needs to be accounted for, and you also need to account for the age of kids. Like, kids are gonna have a different tolerance level than an adult, and times are different too. But I think that, like, if you have a kid that cries over everything, you want to find a way to help them grow through the pain because there's a lot of pain in life. And that doesn't mean you just shove their face down into the dirt. You know what I mean? Like that's not the point of it. But I think that the more you can help explain through hard things and encourage them through hard things. One of the things that Dad did for us, and this was when we were a little older, so this is a different approach for kids, you know what I mean? But like when we were middle school on up, like if we started a season for a sport, we weren't allowed to quit for that season. We could not do the sport again. Like I did wrestling in 8th grade, and I really didn't like the fit of the uniforms. Like it just was. If
you're comfortable in a singlet,
I wasn't really comfortable with it. What?
If you're comfortable with a singlet right away,
yeah. Yeah. Anyways, but like I didn't like it. I didn't feel like I was good at it because there were kids that had wrestled since they were like preschoolers, like, and they were throwing me around. But my dad didn't let us quit until the end of that season. And you know what happened is actually went back in 10th grade and wrestled the rest of my high school career. So that was really, I think it's good to work through things. I think that's something that we've lost in our culture a little bit. So the more that you can toughen kids up in that sense. And I think there's a difference between the role of mothers and fathers. Like I think fathers are probably much better at like helping kids work through some of that tough stuff and pushing them towards that. Whereas mothers are very good at helping them through the pain of like
processing the
emotion of it. You know what I mean? And so that would be my hot take, that you just got to press on a little bit. You know what I mean?
Pressing on, Reliant K.
Yeah, I think that you also need to look at the factors and make sure, like, are they getting enough sleep? Are they hungry? Or like what could be playing into them always melting down? And some of it is parenting. Like, you need to be consistent. If a kid knows that they can break you, they're going to keep doing it. So I know people who they'll say no, the kid starts whining, they'll say no again, the kid keeps going, and eventually they'll break and they'll give them what they want. Well, then that you're telling that kid, okay, I'm reinforcing that if you whine long enough and cry enough, then I get what I want. And so I think that it's really hard to do, but it will play out in the long run, being consistent with your yes and your no, because otherwise you're creating a learned behavior. And then also, like, Vivian had a season where she tends to be more emotional in her reactions, but when she was younger, she would cry. Every transition was so dramatic. Like, I'd pick her up from preschool, bawling because she didn't want to leave. I told her that she had to change what she was doing for a second, and that transition fell apart. And then she got her tonsils and adenoids out, completely changed that reaction. So I know, like, some stuff is medical, and she wasn't getting great sleep and all of that stuff. So looking into those factors, but also I think how we react as a parent and our consistency also is a huge thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, from the great state of Washington, why do kids eat boogers?
Because they're gross.
Gotta try it once, man. Gotta try it once.
I mean,
the curiosity killed the cat.
Well, I hope that booger doesn't kill you, because that came from your own nose. You know what I mean? But
I mean, how many kids carry tissues around with them? Like, it's not common practice to have a handkerchief. So what do you do with it? I mean, their quickest option is stick it in your mouth.
I like that hot take.
I mean, logically.
I like that hot take.
Bring handkerchiefs back.
Yeah, bring
We're gonna start out.
instead of just grandpas having handkerchiefs now, we're gonna start giving kids handkerchiefs.
Yeah.
Handkerchiefs, chiefs.
Hey, and if you give
handkerchiefs.
them a cloth handkerchief, you're not the environment is being saved, man.
Yeah,
like,
there are a lot
you
of
watch
benefits
that thing.
to this.
You can watch that thing.
Yeah.
You can go crunchy on that. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
What?
No.
Yo, handkerchiefs.
Not on the boogers. Not on the
Handkerchiefs are so nasty in general. Dude, you just blow snot into that thing and you just stick it right back.
Is it better in your mouth or in your pocket?
Ooh. Hot take. Sam, hot take for you. Is a booger better on a handkerchief or
in your mouth?
In your mouth.
I mean, the obvious answer is in my pocket.
Obvious?
I haven't. I've never eaten a booger
Maybe?
though. So you tell me.
Whatever.
Lies. Lies.
Okay, well,
Okay.
there's
Man, we turned to the hot take on the question asker.
Yeah.
That was a moment there.
it got hot. It got hot in here. West Virginia. The most asked question is, why is my kid cursing?
Oh. Well, I would say that they learned that behavior from somewhere. So stop cursing, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Stop cursing. There's other factors that I know. We have incredible schools around here. But I would say that
There's exposure.
there's more exposure. Like the more kids you get around, the more opportunity you have for that. And so not that you want to shelter your kid forever, but like the more that you're having conversations on the front of this is the language that we use, and this is the language that we don't use, and curb that behavior early. You know what I mean? And the language that you use yourself. It's just
Yeah.
it is big.
I do
You know what
think when you talk about it, like we'll tell our kids these are words that we don't use, and then we tell them why. Because if you just say we don't use that, well then they don't understand the purpose behind it. But then if you walk them through the why you don't do that, I think it's important. And then also like, what are they being exposed to? Like, are you looking at the music they're listening to, the TV that they're watching? And then like things like school, you can't be right there. But honestly, I don't think school is probably kids' greatest exposure to swearing. I think it's media and music and stuff like that it's way more prevalent and common.
Wisconsin.
Land of the cheeseheads.
Cheeseheads. They ask,
We still love you, Wisconsin.
when can a toddler start churning butter? No, I'm just kidding.
What a question!
The Amish are
ready,
submitting
I'm
their
ready.
questions.
Why does my toddler wake up crying?
Why does my toddler wake up crying?
We had some of our kids have had like night terrors, which can be common, and we found a playlist on Spotify that was like scripture lullabies. That was actually super awesome, and we started playing it at night, and they stopped having night terrors. It was wild, but like if you look at scripture, like in the presence of the name of Jesus, like demons and attacks have to flee. And so we're like, that's just something that we can have there. If there is something that's trying to mess with our kids when they're sleeping. And then it could also just be sleep patterns. They could be teething. They could have pooped. Like there's so many factors like when kids are sleeping. But we did have some kids with like night terrors where they'd actually wake up like crying and screaming. And I know a couple people that I have experienced the same, and I've given that playlist and it has been effective. So yeah, I think there are things you can try and see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just try different things.
That's a take. That's just a
Try
take.
different
That,
things.
there's no hot to that take.
So I mean, it's just it's hard to answer a generic question like that. Well, why does my kid keep crying? Like we don't know your situation, but like those are. I mean, what you said is great.
All right, we have made it. This is the final question.
It better be worth it.
Wyoming.
Okay.
The most asked parenting question: what age can a kid start sports?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a letdown for the last question.
That is.
7th grade. That's a wrap. All right.
I mean, as soon as they're running, you can sign them up for different things. So.
Well, I'll inject a conversation starter here. Is there have been discussions and thoughts that the like Little League and travel sports are a complete family disruptor. And not that sports are bad. I'm a very sport proponent, but I think that is an interesting take because, travel sports, you're gone every weekend at sports. And if you have multiple kids, they're like, you're all split up all over the place. And I thought it was an interesting, I don't know where I heard it.
What if we go to the next question? That
was the last one.
No. The next question that leads me to is like, why do we push such a high intensity on sports? Because if you look at the way, like, for instance, when we were in school, it was hard to be a 4-sport athlete. It was pretty easy to be a 3-sport athlete. I feel like now, like, and part of that might be dependent on school size. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But like, because we came from a small town.
So they needed you in all sports to make a team.
To make a team.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, I feel like nowadays, like it feels like you go to one sport and you gotta you gotta work your butt off and you gotta do that.
Your life is that one sport.
Your life is that one sport. And I feel like there's something that's lost in that, in the ability to try different things. I'm not saying that all parents are doing that. But I do think that there's something to be said for like being able to try different sports and like being able to like because every family has to decide what they're involved in, right? Like sports shouldn't decide what you're involved in. You should decide what you're involved in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes we get into sports and we just kind of let the sports schedule dictate us, where I feel like in terms of if we believe in strong families, strong communities, like the sports is something that does bring people together. And like you said, we both love sports and that's great. But like at the heart of it, like if you don't have a great family, then your performance can be affected in those sports. And I feel like the character building thing is to have a family that is and have the focus on family versus sports being the all important thing that everybody like it's not wrong to sacrifice for things like we just talked about, like doing hard things, right? But like I do think that there's a sense of like, man, if we are going to like do well at sports and be a people that like excels at things, like we need to start at the core of a person. And
I think also we have almost idolized the position on a team over our priorities in the home. And so you have these coaches and these teams that are saying, if you are not at every single practice and you are not at every single game, you're being benched and you're losing your position. Right. And I get, like, you have to make that threat to some extent because you need consistency, you need people to show up. But on the flip side, like, you have people that are missing graduations, you have people missing like family milestones, that are missing church camps, that are missing things that can really build up their faith. And it's like, at the end of your life, you don't take your sports team unless you are like, that is your mission field and you go in with the mindset like, my goal is one, to be the best athlete I can, but even more so than that is to reach my teammates for the gospel. Like, first of all, if you're not teaching your kid that, I feel like you're missing the purpose of being on a sports team, because your goal for this world is influence. And so I think that mission mindset is huge. But then also, like, if you are prioritizing that over church, over like discipleship of your family and devotional times and like all those things, you're teaching your kids to serve something other than God. And so it's so hard because it's so a cultural norm. And I know some families that live for sports, and I know some families that are like, we're not introducing that to our kids because we've seen it like totally encompassed. So I grew up playing all the sports. Like, I was a 4-season athlete, and so I love sports, but I've seen it get more and more competitive and to a level where instead of keeping Wednesdays and Sundays open, those are no longer sacred days for people to be involved with church and family. And so that's where I start to like hesitate, because sports have now become priority over God. And so yeah.
What age?
So, I mean, well, and then also I do think like physically there have been studies done on like kids, their muscle development and stuff, and they're being stretched so hard and so fast at young ages that are like, it's kind of like when you bring a kid into kindergarten, you're like, we need you to read day one. And it's like, kids didn't used to start reading until they were almost in second grade. You know what? Eventually they read. And then they got to play for 2 years and explore and learn and get to be a child. And I think we're just pushing people so hard. And it's like, for what?
I would say, just to be specific to the question, I would say that our dad didn't let us lift weights till high school. And I think that's a wise decision. I think it's fine to do calisthenics, other things like I think it's okay to like start sports at an early age in elementary in the sense of like you're gonna play, you know what I mean, like, and that's sporty, you know what I mean, like even if it's not organized, you can sports whatever.
Yeah,
like we've had our kids do dance, like we've had our girls do dance. But I would say that if you're talking about like specific targeted muscle developments through weightlifting, where you are putting intentional stress on your body in that sense, to get your muscles to bulk up and get strong, I would say, I don't know, I would say high school. That'd be my take. Because there's so much happening in your body development, and I just think that if you screw something up on the front end and like you mess
You're
up
living
a
with
plate,
you're living with the consequences. Like people have arthritis and
they're
they're like, yep, it's because I did this in high school. Yeah. So there's just a lot of things.
And that's not research based. That's just a hot take, but
Ben based. That's all 50 states.
It. We did it.
We did it.
You did it. You stayed with us.
Yes. If you listen to all of these episodes, of all the hot take episodes, and
let us know.
And let us know in the comments. And
what was your favorite?
Yes.
What state were you surprised by, and what state was your least favorite question?
That's literally the opposite of what I just said. Listen to Ben, I guess.
Whatever you want.
I
said, what was your favorite state? And God's question. Then you go, what was your least favorite?
I feel like it's always, everybody always is like, yeah, let us know both. Let us know your favorite and your least favorite. There we go. Do that.
And let us know your responses to that. And then let us know your top. Just keep.
And then we'll call you next week.
First Utah, then
Yes. But yeah, thank you so much for joining this week. And we just want to say, if you like what we do, if you want to see more of it, please hop over to our website, thesnyderfamilypodcast.org, buy some merch, message us. It's just different ways you can support us and keep this going, so we can keep bringing you good content, better topics, better guests.
Wow. We're the bottom of the barrel here.
Guests. You're not guests.
And let us know what you'd like to hear. Like, we would love to hear from you guys on what you'd love to hear, because Hot Takes is fun. We loved doing this series, but we would love to hear what would be a blessing to you in your walk.
Yeah. Yep. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. We'll see you next time.